Hey, Terry Weaver?
Yes, Connie.
Yeah, it's almost time. Are we ready to go?
Connie, this is live, not Zoom.
What? Are you sure?
Yes, Connie, totally sure.
Nah.
For real, Connie.
I should cardboard cut out so I carry your hand out. If you're not a cardboard cut out, could you just wave? Well, this is awkward. I'm so used to not meeting with real people that I just automatically pressed in my Yeah, this is so disorienting. I'm used to apologizing for glitches with Zoom, when things aren't working, but I think this is more defined as a user error. But I'll try to get better and maybe dress properly all the way as the morning progresses. So, good morning. Just give me a second. Good morning and welcome to the Rotary District 7750 All Club Conference. You're obviously not quite good at MC, but I promise you I will get better in the morning. I am also a grateful member of the Greenville Rotary Club, the home of Beth Paget, our district governor. She has done just a remarkable job in serving all of us during this very, very difficult year. So I know some of you haven't seen each other in over a year and a half. Isn't it great to be together as Rotarians here? It's not just a district conference. This is a homecoming. So welcome back and welcome home. And welcome to downtown Greenville, which is a great place to celebrate Rotary, to celebrate friendships, to celebrate just getting out and about in the city of Greenville, which has so much to offer, by the way. Entertainment, good food, little hidden mice all over the street. It's a great way to start. And we hope that we prepared a great program for you today, even if I started out on the wrong foot, with the wrong shoes. But we can only go up from here. So first on the program is a very real live person, which is fortunate, and a very lively person, the past president of the Greenville Rotary Club, Russell Stones.
I wasn't too sure I could live up to the lively part, but we're going to give it a shot. Good morning. Good morning. On behalf of the mayor and Greenville City Council, welcome to Rotary District 7750 Conference. And welcome live, y'all. It's really nice, truly, to see people's faces and not have to converse with each other through our eyes only. So it's so great to see y'all this morning. I hope a few of you got the chance to experience our downtown last night, and looking around the room, I think a few of you may have experienced it a little too much. But we appreciate your contribution to our hospitality tax fund and hope that you will continue to do so throughout the day and tonight as well. This weekend's Rotary Conference, to me, marks a reopening and a revitalization in so many ways. As we emerge from COVID, I apologize in advance to all my friends here and those that I don't know for hugging you. And I have a lot of catching up to do, guys. So if I don't hug you during the conference, come find me. I had a year and a half to make up with the Zoom calls and the home confinement and being a bit of a hermit, so it is so nice to be back. With this conference, Greenville is reopening and rekindling the in-person connections and relationships that we've so sorely missed over the past 18 months. It's no mistake that we are here at the Hyatt. 40 years ago, the Hyatt Regency opened as the first anchor in downtown Greenville's revitalization in this very spot. So I don't think it's any accident that we are here this morning as we reopen Greenville again and reopen our connections with our fellow Rotarians. So welcome, Rotarians. Welcome to the reopening. Welcome to the freedom and the ability to reconnect again with each other finally. And welcome to downtown Greenville. I hope today is filled with inspiration. I hope you can reconnect and rekindle some of those relationships that we've so missed over the last 18 months. And we're glad to have you here. So there's a little extra pressure here with Deb Richardson Moore here. She is my former pastor, so there's a little extra pressure on the invocation. So bear with me, but pray with me if you choose. It is right to recognize how different we are, our talents, our dreams, our backgrounds, our occupations, our religions, our politics. Yet we thank you that we can take these differences and mobilize them for the good of Rotary and our communities. We can use our differences to create common good. The gift of Rotary is evident in this room. We are surrounded by friends with unique gifts to share in this world. We are surrounded by people who live the pledge of service before self and believe in the transforming power of service, compassion, and peace. As we gather here today as members of Rotary, we pray that we are ever mindful of the needs of others in Greenville and throughout the district. Please, Lord, bless our District Governor Beth and all Rotary leaders gathered here today and give them the wisdom of discernment and a heart of compassion. Bless our country and our leaders in this challenging and divisive time. Help us stay focused on our world and community for peace, for tranquility, for patience and discernment, freedom from hunger, from oppression, from poverty and sickness. We ask for your blessing and to be with each of us as we move throughout our daily lives, always keeping in mind the extraordinary talents we have and the differences we embrace. In the name of the God we acknowledge and honor. Amen. Now please stand. And welcome the color guard composed of 4 scouts from Troop 420 out of St. Mary Magdalene Catholic Church in Simpsonville. The Scoutmaster is Ben Steigerwald.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the recitation of our pledge.
Color guard, advance. Color guard, halt. Color guard, prepare to toast the color.
Ladies and gentlemen, salute.
Color guard, toast the colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guard, report. Color guard, dismissed.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
y'all have a great conference and hug somebody you don't know today.
And now, please welcome this year's district governor for 2020-2021, Beth Padgett.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming today. Welcome to the District 7750 All Club Conference. Let me ask you, how many of you would really like to be at home in your PJs trying to launch that Zoom meeting so you can see one more virtual event? Anybody? How many of you are glad that you are here with your friends at the Hyatt Hotel for an in-person all club conference? I am glad too. It was so important to me, it was so important to other people that if possible, we could have this in person. We got lucky and the vaccines hit at the right time. And so we have an outstanding conference and we have so many of you who have joined us. So my first thank you today is to you. Thank you for being patient with us as we decided whether we could have this in person. Thank you for coming, and thank you for supporting Rotary during a very difficult time. Rotary's international theme this year is Rotary Opens Opportunities. We've got to be honest with ourselves. We've been denied so many opportunities this year for actually the past 15 months or so because of COVID. We haven't been able to see our friends. We haven't been able to hug, as Russell said. We haven't been able to do so many of the things that we want to do. So this is what I want you to do this weekend. Hug, as Russell said. He needs an extra hug. Talk to your friends. Have fun. Make some new friends. Pick up some ideas for how to improve your clubs. Go home inspired, energized, and ready to do Rotary as we open up in a new world. So thank you for coming. I've also got to thank our All Club Conference Committee. They took a chance on this not happening after all our hard work, but they also took a chance on it happening. But to do that, they had to put together a conference in 4 months, and it usually takes about a year of planning to do this. So my deep appreciation, and I hope yours too, is to our conference committee, starting with our chair, Elizabeth Lyons, my good friends Pam and Terry Weaver, and if everybody who participated on the conference committee would just stand so you could be recognized, I would appreciate it. Backstage, making sure everything goes well. We recognize them again tonight when they're off duty during the meeting. When I started thinking, this was years ago, a couple of years ago, early in my training to be a district governor, when I started thinking about what I wanted to do at my conference, because that's one of the duties of a district governor is to have a conference like this, I wanted to focus on service. You've heard my speech. Service is so important. It was what kept me in Rotary when I was thinking about dropping out. It is what engages people. So I wanted a conference that focused a lot on service, how we can do it better, how our clubs can rethink what they're doing perhaps, how we can use service to engage our members and get our members excited, get them excited about being Rotarians. So I wanted a conference that focused on service. And so this one primarily this morning is about that. How we can do things better, how other clubs are doing great service projects. And so I would hope that maybe some of you would have ideas to take back home with you. You've also heard my speech when I visited all your clubs about the importance of Rotary looking more like our own communities. So we have a special panel this morning that focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion, so that we can start re-examining us, what our clubs do, so that our clubs better reflect our communities. And so that's important to me. It's important, I think, to us as Rotary clubs. So we're going to have a panel on that this morning too. Then we're going to have a lunch session that is going to have its own special prizes and surprises. So thank you for coming. And I would also like to thank our sponsors. A conference like this conference is affordable. You may not have thought that when you registered. You're paying about what people paid 5, 6, 7 years ago to come to register for an all-club conference. And that's only possible because of generous sponsors. So I would like to recognize the people who have made it possible, starting with our gold sponsors, starting with Southern First, who sponsor our bags, Rotary Club of Clemson Sunrise, Rotary Club of Greenville, my club, and Elizabeth Lyons, who are our gold sponsors. So thank you very much. Our silver sponsors are Founders Federal Credit Union, LS Homes, Jan Kim, Ron DeMonet, Rotary Club of Anderson, Rotary Club of Newberry, Express Press, and Terry and Pam Weaver. Our bronze sponsors, you can see them on the screen, they're in your program, and we also have some what I call friends of the conference. So they're also on the screen and in the program. So look at our sponsors and say thank you to them because they have made it possible for us to have an affordable conference here today. Now it is my privilege and honor to introduce our first keynote speaker for today, Deb Richardson Moore. Deb is, she's been a friend of mine for a long time. She started working at the Greenville News about a year before I did. She spent 27 years at the Greenville News and was one of the best writers that I have ever worked with. Many fine writers passed through Greenville when this was a booming newspaper town. Deb was one of the best, and she decided to make her home here and raise a family here. So she covered arts, she covered general features, she covered breaking news, she covered everything, including religion. It was through writing about religion that Deb got interested in wanting to learn more and went to Erskine Theological Seminary. From there, she made a career change and became a pastor at Triune Mercy Center, which was a church that was down and out at that time. It is now thriving because of Deb. Triune is a church where on any given Sunday, you see the homeless, you see the working poor, you see middle-class people, and you see some of the wealthiest people in Greenville sitting on the same pews, worshiping in community. And so Triune focuses a lot on homelessness, and that is where Deb has devoted a lot of her attention also. She's a great writer, she was a great pastor, and she has retired now, and now has devoted herself to writing fiction and making appearances. So visit her book table out front if you've not had a chance to do so already. Deb and her husband Vince live in Greenville still, and they have 3 adult children, 3 grown children. And so take a minute to get to know Deb, and I think you're going to be fascinated by her speech. I've known Deb almost my entire adult life. I know that she is a person of courage. She's a person of compassion and a person of deep commitment to the least of these among us. Please join me in welcoming my very good friend, Deb Richardson Moore.
Hey everyone, it's so good to be with you. My favorite part of the morning so far was seeing that glamour shot of Beth. If you are like me, your new best friend is Netflix. I recently watched a series called The Serpent, and it's based on the true story of a man in 1970s Bangkok, Thailand, who drugged and robbed and killed a number of young backpackers. I spent 10 episodes gasping and covering my eyes because all 3 of my children had spent a good deal of time in Bangkok. Instead of obsessing over their sunscreen, I should have been obsessing over the killer in room 504. But the reason he got away with it for so long was because when people reported him to the foreign embassies, the employer said, not my problem, not my job. Until finally, a young man in the Dutch embassy began to investigate. And when faced with the inaction of his colleagues, he screamed, if caring about people is not our job, what is our job exactly? Caring about people is not our job. What is our job exactly? Certainly that's the mission of Rotary. And shouldn't that be the mission or the job of every single one of us? We're not all social workers or ministers or prison reformers or even Rotarians, but we all have a stake in caring for people. And my 15 years as pastor at the Triune Mercy Center convinced me that there are helpful and unhelpful ways of doing so. Ways we may think we are helping, which in fact are damaging. If you're not familiar with Triune, it's that red brick church that sits next door to what was Tommy's Country Ham House until a couple of weeks ago. Triune dissolved as United Methodist Church and was reborn as a non-denominational church to the homeless. When I arrived in 2005, it was a place where Greenville's homeless citizens worshiped, ate, shopped for clothes, and occasionally cursed, fought, stole, drank, smoked crack, and defecated in the breezeway. On a hot August day in 2005, I preached my first sermon there. I was nervous and excited as I stepped into my brand new preaching robe and a brand new career. I chose as my text that morning a Christian passage, but one that shows up in some form in every religion. Matthew 25. Feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit the imprisoned, care for the sick, welcome the stranger. Well, I got to tell you, there wasn't anything easier to preach in that place. I knew that every time I opened the church door, I was likely to meet a stranger, a hungry, ragged, sometimes sick, sometimes formerly incarcerated stranger. And what I fully meant to do in that place was welcome every drug addict as if he might be Jesus. Welcome every prostitute as if she might be Jesus. For you see, I believed what South African Bishop Peter Story once said. You cannot ask Jesus into your heart alone. He will ask, can I bring my friends? You will look at his friends, the poor, the marginalized, and the oppressed, and you will hesitate. But Jesus is clear, only if I can bring my friends. Well, I'm here to tell you, Jesus has some rowdy friends. I'm pretty sure he hangs out with Hank Williams Jr. But even having met some of them, I believe what Bishop Story said. I just come to believe there are smart ways to follow those instructions and ill-advised ways. I learned the hard way, of course. At the end of that very first sermon on that very hot day in August 2005, I gathered up my robe and swept down the aisle to the front door and ran smack into a stranger. If you've read my book, The Weight of Mercy, you know how this story ends. The stranger said he was a pastor whose van had broken down with his youth choir in it, and he needed money to get them to the Simpsonville church where they were to perform. Well, I ran up to my office, got money out of my purse, put him in the car with my husband and daughter, and sent them off to the broken down van. It was hours later as I sat in my office and began going over the story in my head that I realized what church service starts at noon. And Triune was not between his alleged church and Simpsonville. I realized I'd been scammed. But now I was worried about my husband and daughter. I called them. Sure enough, when the man got in our car, he told my husband that, oh, his church van had already been towed. And he had Vince drive him to what was then a very rough public housing project. There was no van, no youth choir, no church, and he was certainly no pastor. I have no doubt that the $21 I gave him that morning went for crack or rock gut whiskey. Now, I would not tell you that story if it was an isolated case, but it wasn't. And something similar happened to me again just 24 hours ago on Main Street, Greenville. It was the first of dozens, if not hundreds, of pleas that I heard. For many years, it was much more the rule than the aberration. We all want to help the poor. But when we are feeding an addiction or offering relief so that an addict's money can feed an addiction, we are doing more harm than good. I know I sure did. But there's an even more difficult problem, a more insidious problem, and it has to do with dignity. We studied 3 books at Triune, The Weight of Mercy, because I am nothing if not self-serving, When Helping Hurts, and Toxic Charity. In Toxic Charity, developer Robert Lupton says that absent a hurricane or another natural disaster, we in the United States should not be giving out food or clothes or any kind of relief. The donor-recipient model creates an unequal power dynamic that strips dignity, creates dependency, fosters resentment. One of his most compelling arguments is something I imagine you've seen in volunteer work. The first time we give, we elicit appreciation. Somebody thanks us, makes us feel good. The second time we give, we create anticipation. The third time, expectation. The fourth time, entitlement. And the fifth time, we create dependency. We know this from raising our children, don't we? If we give $100 for this birthday and then $50 for the next one, they're going to ask, where's the other $50? We've created entitlement. Actually, I found many parallels between parenting and working with the poor, but we tend to exercise better judgment with our children. We don't just keep tying their shoes until they're 20. We don't give them bottomless credit cards. But essentially, that is what we do sometimes in our work with the poor. The natural conclusion is they can end up childlike independent, and we can end up resentful because they're not standing on their own 2 feet. In Toxic Charity, a Central American pastor laments that North American churches come to help by piling on the stuff. They are turning my people into beggars, he said. We found that to be absolutely true. In many communities, we have turned America's poor into beggars. So, what is the alternative? If we're not going to hand out goods to eliminate poverty, what do we do instead? How do we follow any religion's instructions to serve the poor? How do we welcome those rowdy friends? I recommend abandoning the donor-recipient model, which is this, in favor of leveling the playing field. This, not this. That involves some concrete systemic changes, such as paying a livable wage, building truly affordable housing, ending predatory lending, dismantling racism. But most of all, it involves inviting people into our lives. There's great strength in inviting people into community, inviting them into relationship. asking them to volunteer, giving them the option of serving each other, allowing them to be part of something like everybody else gets to be, not just to be on the receiving end of that stuff. As we wrestled at Triune about how to relieve hunger, thirst, nakedness, sickness, we learned that those things were often symptoms of something else, of isolation, loss of community, loneliness. A homeless man once said to me, "Pastor, do you know the worst thing about being homeless? It's not being cold or wet or hungry. The worst thing about being homeless is being looked right through." Well, I use that idea in my series of Brannigan Powers mysteries. They include Malachi Ezekiel Martin, a character, a homeless man, who helps a news reporter solve murders because he can glide through their town virtually unseen, hearing and seeing things that others don't or can't. At Triune, we responded by looking at people, touching shoulders, making eye contact, learning names. One of our most severely mentally ill women went by 2 different names. And on any given day, she would only answer one of those. She frequently would clear out a pew by snarling at anybody who tried to sit next to her. One Sunday morning, she knelt at the altar rail to receive communion. "The body of Christ broken for you, Denise," I said, hoping that was the name of the day. "Good. The blood of Christ shed for you." And she turned to the Furman professor kneeling next to her and just beamed. "Pastor knows my name." I finally worked up my nerve to ask Denise to lead the responsive reading one Sunday, not knowing what I was going to get. To my great surprise, she read beautifully. And the congregation, who was well aware of her challenges, burst into cheers and applause. And Denise said, "Thank you. Thank you. I thank you." I was just waiting for her to thank the Academy. Several years ago, my husband and I took an anniversary trip to the Turks and Caicos Islands. I picked up a magazine in our hotel and learned that the natives of those islands are called belongers. Belongers. It gives them a certain status involving immigration and so forth. They belong to the islands. And when I read that, I thought, what a great word. At Triune, we actually started calling our parishioners belongers. Because isn't that what we all want to belong? Let me tell you about my belonger friend, Lois. When we met Lois, she had been sleeping beside the dumpster outside the Greenville Convention Center for 18 months. Not surprisingly, she suffered from depression. She began meeting with our mental health worker about past sexual abuse. She got dentures. She enrolled in Greenville Tech. And then Lois became one of the guinea pigs for Triune Circles, which was a year-long program in which we trained a circle of 4 volunteers to come alongside someone, to encourage, to cheerlead, to advise, but not to rescue, not to buy out of situations, essentially to befriend. Well, during that year, Lois got into a little house provided by Greenville Mental Health. And on her birthday, her circle members went to that house with balloons, cake, and a pink dogwood tree to plant outside her brand new picture window. And as she was telling me about it later, she said, "Pastor, only people who had taken the time to know me and taken the time to love me could have known that that pink dogwood was the best gift they could have ever given me." But of course, the dogwood wasn't the best gift. The best gift was having 4 new friends who understood the meaning of that dogwood tree. At Triune, we did a lot of things to foster belonging. Art, music, theater, meal service, communion, volunteerism, recovery groups, support groups. I was convinced that only by pulling people into community, into friendship, seeking their expertise, could we tackle the deeper issues of mental health, poverty, addiction, homelessness. We all need to be seen, heard, noticed, validated. One of my proudest moments came after a cherished parishioner and volunteer died. Wayne had been a volunteer for 4 different Triune Circles like Lois's. And at his memorial service, all 4 of them showed up. These were formerly homeless individuals. One young woman brought her parents with whom she had reconciled. One woman had become a homeowner. One man, impeccably dressed in a suit, helped me give the eulogy. And one man had returned to addiction and life on the street. But even he was there because he was still a member of our community. And that didn't change because he was temporarily failing. Sometimes when we study how best to help and how we can inadvertently hurt by extending addiction or creating dependency, the temptation is to freeze, to become paralyzed, to throw up our hands and say, well, we can't do anything without hurting someone. But we know that's not the answer. The challenge is to help wisely, and as your mission statement says, with integrity, to create friends and partners and belongers, not beggars, not dependents, not a separate class of less than recipients. Because if caring for people is not our job, what is our job exactly? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation, and you pushed us all to try to consider what actions and roles we as individuals and as Rotarians play in confronting and reducing homelessness and poverty. So thank you for that. We'd like to open it up to the board to questions from the audience, if that's okay with you. And so if you have a question, if you would raise your hand, and one of our very speedy and trained microphone assistants will come over to you. And when that happens, if you would stand and state pretty succinctly what your question is to them.
Do you really get training in how to go to give somebody a microphone? No.
It really reminds me of Jesus. The beggar is there. He tells him, get up, pick up your mat, walk. Very well done.
Thank you, thank you. My favorite scripture.
Deb, you mentioned 3 books. The Quality of Mercy, Toxic Charities, what was
The third,
When Helping Hurts. And every one of those is told from a Christian religious perspective. So it's not like, they're secular, or they're not taking our religion claiming into account.
I'm so encouraged and inspired by the work that you've done. And my question for you is, how did you overcome fear? I'm really led to kind of do some of the work that you do, but as a woman especially, how did you overcome situations of fear in the work that you do?
Yeah, her question, if you can hear, is, how to overcome fear. Actually, that was one of the questions I got most frequently. Oddly enough, at Triune. That was just never part of it. I felt like, I don't know. We did some common sense things like assembling a staff that included men and women, and so we had some former police officer on staff. 1 6'5" gentleman on staff. But it was really later on. In the early days, I was there a good bit by myself. I just, as I write about in The Weight of Mercy, I think it was my dad who just sort of, what he used to say was, Are there people in the world who want to hurt you? Yeah, but if you live your life looking for them, you've already given away your life. And I really took that to heart, that I just was not going to live in fear. Now, that is not to say that I go up to strangers on the street offering help. You know, I don't. We were doing it inside, you know, in church walls. And I think there was, you know, we knew what we were doing and we had put procedures in place. So no, would I go out and do something by myself on the streets? Not at all. Yes, Carol.
Back to your first place.
Hello, we're way back in the back, so thank you so much, Deb. I'm Al Dorisha from the Lancaster Club, and I just wanted to say thank you so much. I'm a pastor as well in the Charlotte and Lancaster area, but I also have churches in Jamaica, Africa, and in other areas. But I wanted to say thank you for your heart and your service. And as a pastor, what are you involved with now, or since being a pastor? What are you involved with now, or are you involved with now in working with other pastors and other churches in other areas to be able to help set up or establish organizations like that?
Okay. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for your work as well. I only retired about 11 months ago, so I'm not involved with other pastors as much, but we were founders of the Greenville Homeless Alliance, and so that's where I put my attention now. Greenville Homeless Alliance is trying very hard to get behind building more affordable housing and tackling some of the more systemic issues in this community. So that's what I'm doing in retirement.
Deb, not a question, but I wanted to say to everyone, Deb walks everything she talks, and she was so helpful in helping us in Anderson create something very similar to Triumph that we call the South Bay Chapel of Mercy Center. So thank you so much, Deb.
You're welcome.
Just wanted to ask what we are doing in Greenville for affordable housing, and maybe you could kind of lay out what the price line is for affordable housing that we were trying to target as far as the clientele for affordable housing, not the builders, but the people that would move there.
Oh boy, I might need some help from Russell on this one, because I do not have those figures in my head. We are trying, currently United Housing Connections is building a 36-unit permanent supportive housing, which is vital, because that is for people who are mentally ill or addicted, and, you know, who are not going to get housing otherwise. So to me, that's critical. That's Church Street Place at Coville. The other things we are trying to do, there's been housing funds and all sorts of things, but it is very hard. Russell?
Training went really well. This is a really important issue in Greenville, especially during the pandemic. We've seen the numbers of people that are living in homelessness increase fairly dramatically, and I think you noticed that as you walked out of the Hyatt. The city has dedicated $7 million for affordable housing, which is the first time that we've done that as a city that I can remember, dedicated funding actually to affordable housing. And everyone's definition of affordable housing seems to be a little bit different. And we've also created the Greenville Housing Fund, which is actively working to place housing not only in the city, but also in the county, where things are a little more affordable. Just right down the street, Unity Park, which is our new park, 60-acre park that we're building. We have 8 acres that we've dedicated to affordable housing, so people can live in that community and enjoy the amenities of Unity Park as well. There are a lot of efforts, but this doesn't, we aren't going to solve this overnight. And and as a city, I think we're asking for help from the citizens to get engaged and become aware of how serious the problem of affordable housing is. So, thank you.
Yeah, Deb, you're doing outstanding work. I think my question is, just as serious as affordable housing is adequate mental health assistance. Could you speak a little bit as to, do you have assistance from the state, or is it all private as far as mental health services?
Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. All those things, addiction services, mental health services, there's so many of those barriers that our citizens have to affordable housing. That's certainly the biggest one. Yeah, Triune, we depended a lot on Greenville Mental Health, but as a public agency, a lot of times I would have somebody in my office and they needed to see someone and they would say, yes, come in 3 months. Well, I was never going to, was not going to be able to put my hands on that person in 3 months any better than, man in the moon. So we did hire some of our own mental health workers there. But it's still, it's a hybrid. We're still using, Greenville Mental Health. It's by far the best resource we have. And they have a homeless division. So they're doing the best they can, but everybody is just horribly understaffed for the problem.
Thank you for the talk. Could you say a bit more about the scammer situations? You're walking down the street, got a pocketed $2 in your pocket. In case the situation comes, should you cross the road and go the other way?
Yeah, sure. What we suggest, and this was not just me, this was all of my colleagues across every agency and church in Greenville. Because when somebody approaches you on the street, and asks for, it's going to be gas, a mother's funeral, it's got to be emergency, and we're hungry. Those kind of services are available in Greenville. Triune, United Ministries, Salvation Army, Miracle Hill. We were set up for that. If somebody's on the street, 99% of the time it's going to be for drugs and alcohol. And if you don't believe me, offer them food or take them to a restaurant. And if they do that, great. But it's usually they'll say, never mind, I need the money. So no, and I don't think you have to cross the street. I think you can engage. No, I support United Ministries. Go there for help. No, I support Salvation Army. If you've got to help you. Because I don't like to anyone to give the impression of you're not worthy of my time, you're not worthy of my attention. But I'm telling you, money is going to do more harm than good at that juncture. Thank you so much.
Like your presentation, and I learn more about you all the time. And so I think that you have pushed us to understand the difference between helping and hurting. And maybe we'll all take that back with us. We wanted to show our appreciation for you with a little gift from Rotary District 775. Thank you so much. And just a reminder to everybody else that Deb's books will be available to you outside the doors on the break. So one more time, please thank you. Beth spoke earlier today about what her primary focus was going to be during her administration as district governor. And she said that she wanted to concentrate on service, on creating opportunities for our clubs to do more service in the community. So every year at this conference, we ask our clubs to give some examples of their programs and their projects in their own areas, and that ways that they have illustrated the Rotary Club service motto of service above self and the foundation's vision of doing good in the world. So we have 3 all-star presentations coming up right now. And unfortunately, we don't have time probably to have questions from the audience. So, but if you take advantage of the conference this week and approach the presenters and find more details out that way. So first up is the Community Garden Project from Rotary Club of Clemson Sunrise. And please welcome presenter Tom Moncano.
Good morning. Good morning. By this time, I know that you wish that you had chosen the prize behind you for number 1. But I'm what you got, but mercifully for only 5 minutes, unless you're my wife Doris in the very back. What I'm going to talk about is our community garden, and I need to answer 5 questions in 5 minutes. First question is, who are you? Where are you from? What are you talking about? Why should I care? And how long are you going to be talking? Well, I'm going to go to the next slide right now. Oops, sorry. Go back. I'm Tom Moncano, past president of Clemson Sunrise Rotary Club. I'm going to be talking about the community garden. Why should I care? As president of the Clemson Clemson Sunrise Garden, we are always trying to find new ways of service, trying to find new ways of engaging those people on margins of society, like our previous speaker spoke about. If you look at it from a football game perspective, we have players that go both offense and defense. We have participants, people that go either with the offense or the defense or the special team. We have passengers, those folks that are on the benches. We have passers-by that are the people in the stands. We have prisoners, those people that the passers-by brought to the game against their wishes. We have the provocateurs, those people that second guess what else you could have done if I was down there helping. And finally, we have the apostles, those people that play dead until the game's over, and then they go back somewhere else. Well, the great thing about this, the concept that we had, was we were trying to find out how we get more participants, players, and passengers away from our club, from being the passerbys, the prisoners, the provocateurs, and the apostles. And so I am proud to say that this idea did not come from Pets. It occurred in Pets by our past president, Matt Brooks. He had the idea, and he said, look, why don't we go ahead and find a community garden? Why don't we have a garden plot? We will plant local produce and give it to folks for free. I am pleased to say that I told Matt it would never fly. And boy, was I wrong. We found a place at Clemson Community Gardens, our own little plot. It only cost $100. And wow, did we get a lot of ideas from other gardeners and garden clubs. We found out a great way to brand our club. We were no longer in a Zoom meeting. We were out there with other gardeners. We were out there with foreign students who couldn't speak English very well, but by golly, they wanted to learn how to plant. We brought people from where they were into a place that was open, accessible, adhering to COVID restrictions, and it increased a number of things for us. Here are some foods for thoughts. It started with Matt, and it struggled a little bit with Matt, but then all of a sudden we had 2 or 3 people saying, you know what? I bet you I can grow tomatoes better than you can grow cucumbers. I bet you I can grow green beans better than you can grow okra. And then we had 4 or 5 agents of change. And when you start looking at these people here, look at our competitors, we had the Beanie Boomers, Peas in a Pod, the Fighting Okra, the Materheads. And the great thing about that was we had people with the experience and the passion, taking those people with the brown thumb, for those people that never grew garden, that never grew anything before. And they were able to impart not only their knowledge, but their energy and their enthusiasm. And the most important thing that we did was we gave produce for those in need. Went from 221 pounds over 500 pounds last year. We were able to partner with other local community organization plots. And we created a buzz this year because we got a beehive. And that beehive is now pollinating all of the other plots within a 2.5 mile radius. So that's a wonderful thing that we did in terms of growing. It's a year-round job, but like all 4 seasons, you start around April and you end around October or November. And it's the same thing that we're looking at here: preparing, planting, watering, weeding, harvest, and weeding. The great thing about this is we've done 3 things in terms of growth. The third thing, the things that we think, say, we promote goodwill and better friendships, not only within the group, but to the greater community. Second thing is supporting the environment. And the third thing is focusing on our local communities. I always said, or the German Schopenhauer said, that heck will reject the heart, just not embrace. Well, our club, thanks to Matt and a number of other people, embrace this idea, and we have really gained not only a better reputation for ourselves, but we've become the go-to people, our club, for the local food banks. And right now, favorite words that that everyone wants to hear, the 3 words, and in conclusion. I would advise you to try this or something else that gets people out of the bleachers and the benches on the field. Not to win for themselves, but to share the glory with others. Thank you very much.
Morning. My name is Eric Fishbaum. I'm with the Reedy River Rotary Club. I'm Community Service Chair. I'm going to talk to you today about a kind of a collaboration we did with the Rope Mountain Science Center and our club to support their pollinator garden. First, a little bit about the Science Center itself. The Science Center has been around for quite some time. They're a public and private partnership with Greenville County Schools. And generally, they'll have about 50,000 students come in, 4,000 teachers from across the state, not just in the county. And they focus on science, education, and their kind of motto is that they want to ignite the natural curiosity of all learners to explore and shape their world. Very much in line with what Rotary does and what we try to do in our service projects. It was in March of 2019 that we had a presentation in one of our meetings in support of the Water and Sanitation Month from the Science Center to talk about their new plans for an environmental science and sustainable center that they want to build at the site. This was a concept that fit very well with our club. We had a lot of interest in conservation. We also had a lot of interest in education, and kind of dovetailed together very nicely. So we met with representatives from the Science Center. We talked to them about what they wanted to do, and did we have an opportunity where we could support them, not only financially, but maybe through community service. And from that, they did submit a grant for our duck derby. If you know anything about the Reedy River Rotary Club, we are the duck derby people. And so they submitted a grant request. They submitted a grant request, but it was quite large. $20,000 is what they were looking for to help them with this pollinator garden. And we got our board together and really worked out a nice little relationship between the current president and the future president to see if we couldn't spread this across 2 years. And they both supported the idea, so we awarded the grant to them. It was spread across 2 years. For the first year, we'd be focusing on really getting the planning and beginning to do the construction, and then finally ending up with the implementation implementation of the garden. In 2019, we had the groundbreaking ceremony, 28,000 square feet. A very nice time of the year to go out there and dig in some dirt, if you will. And then things got kind of a little crazy going into 2020, as you might expect. But one of the things that we were focusing on through this whole adventure was that this lab that they were putting in was really going to be focused on hands-on learning. They wanted to be able to bring people in and not only learn about pollination and how that's good for the environment, but also give them something they could go out and see and touch, if you will, and really support the learning process. Our club didn't want to stop with just giving money. We don't like to do that. I mean, we enjoy giving money. Our Duck Derby supports us quite a bit, but we can support a lot of other organizations. But we also really enjoy working with those organizations directly and getting our hands dirty, if you will. So we set up going into 2021 where we had several projects of actually coming in and implementing, planting plants, putting out mulch, really doing the work of putting the garden in place. And for sustainability, we now have a place that we can go and show folks that, yes, we were involved in this, and then we'll have signage out there that says that the Reedy River Rotary Club was responsible for implementing this program. It really helped us to not only support what we were interested in, support our community in terms of the education and the growth, not only now but going forward, but then it also gave our club members a chance to engage with our community in an area that we had interest in. Thank you very much.
Hey! My name is Kid Jennings, and I'm going to tell you about the Piedmont Region 3 Science Fair, a project of the Rotary Club of Spartanburg. Our producer is USC Upstate, and we are the sponsors of our Piedmont Region 3 Science Fair. There are 7 regions in South Carolina, and we are number 3. And of those 3 regions, 3 of them go to the are members of the Regeneron International Science and Engineering Fair. So whoever our winner is goes forward to participate in the International Science Fair, which is usually in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland, any of those West Coast cities that it takes a long time to get there, and the flights are expensive, and so we send them. But here's the greatest thing is, it's our 66th year. 66th year of producing. Here are my founders. These 2 guys, both Spartanburg Rotarians, both chemists at Milliken Company, and both really, really smart dudes. They both, and I was getting ready to go to work one morning, and I looked up at the Today Show, and there was Dmitry Gagarin on the Today Show. He was known by all the world as the father of washing Ware. And so, on behalf of Dmitry, you're welcome. Just to let you know, the white patents belong to Joe Dusenberry. The yellow patents belong to Dmitry Gagarin. And I remember Dmitry one morning, as I arrived at Rotary, he said, we are, in his heavy Russian accent, we are not looking for young people who are simply interested in science. We are interested in young people who are passionate about science. And that's exactly how he said it. Here's a few facts. We had 559 projects this year. Our usual year is between 900 and 1,000, and so that is what we'll have this year. Most of the science fair basically was virtual this year, but it won't be virtual next year. We had 613 students play, participate, 43 schools, and of all those 43 schools, there were over 5,000 science projects in all, down from 8,000 or 9,000 in previous years, and these were all students who were passionate about science. I know what you're thinking, I know what you're saying. How do you get 1,000 science projects in one room? Well, let me just show you. The tables are one of our major expenses. We also pay for dinner for the judges. We do gift cards for all the kids who win. And we, of course, pay for their travels to the International Science and Engineering Fair. We serve Cherokee, Chester, Lancaster, Spartanburg, Union, and York. Our categories are biology, chemistry, physics, medicine, and about 25 other categories. And that's how we do it. And here are the winners. Terry Weaver, I'd like for you to go ahead and memorize these so that you can tell everybody. We had 33 elementary winners. We had 32 middle school winners, and we had 3 high school winners. And again, for the kids who are there, they're already winners because they have already won the science fair in their community, and so they get to come here. So it just rubs off on everybody. Here's a few pictures. Well, where are the pictures? Okay. Well, Ella's a sweet girl. Ashley Evans is one of the prettiest girls. Again, a winner. And Samantha Magner with Ed Donovan. I have about another 2,000 or 3,000 of these, but I thought I'd hold back. There you go, Isabel Rebels from Southmore High School in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And our overall winners of the Science Fair go to the International Science Fair. In fact, we raise money each year. We place these funds into the Piedmont Science Fair Fund of the Spartanburg County Foundation. And here's the best part, they pay all the bills. And so we have done this for 66 years, and we will do it for 66 more years or more. Now, Dimitri and Joe saw a need in the community, and so they acted on it. And we as Rotarians, as we see a need in our community, we're not supposed to say somebody ought to do something about it, or somebody ought to do something about this. Somebody ought to do something about something. We say we are the ones who need to do something about it. And that's for all of us as Rotarians. Thank you so much, and remember that we want students who are passionate about science. And for the All-Star Awards, and for Connie coming back, I think we should have a standing ovation.
I don't know about you, but my ears are ringing. Great. We are very appreciative of the presenters. And now for those of you who have had several cups of coffee this morning, you'll be glad to know that we're coming up on a break. And 2 reminders before you go. One is that Deb Richardson Moore's books are right out that door, and her daughter is helping her to sell them for you. So we're going to give you even a little extra time on the break because for some magical reason we are ahead of schedule. And the other reminder is that in your name badge, you have, if you registered for the full conference or all of Saturday, you have a card that looks like it's a business card for Southern First, and in a way it is, but also on there, this is your coupon to get a bag. So if you did not get a memorable, there we are. Thank you very much for displaying that over there, Renee. So if you did not get one of those keepsake bags, please go to the registration table and they will be waiting there for you. So you will have time at this point. So we are going to take a break and we're going to convene back here at 10:30. Thanks, everybody.
Sorry.